Okay, so now we want to get this thing animated in 2 dimensions like I have here. So we're going to build out our network a little bit and we're going to add some naming convention just to keep things organized. Okay, so what I'm going to do first, this is saved. I'm going to go ahead and close this. Okay, so this is where we're at so far. We have our visuals, we have our motion. So I'm gonna zoom out a little bit and add some more space to our motion because we're gonna add some more operators. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to move this, we're trying to change our TX. And we want to be able to take our LFO and kind of split the signal and route this signal into um, more usable signals, right? So first thing, let's update our naming a little bit. So just so we can keep everything straight, I'm also gonna bring this color in here somewhere. Actually, let me get rid of that. All right, so let's look at our rec1. We're gonna call this rec1 main, okay? And then we're gonna call this transform1 main, okay? And we're gonna call this null1 visual. Now I'm just keeping kind of the initial name that TouchDesigner gives you when you generate an operator, and then just adding kind of like what its purpose is so that we just keep track of what we're doing. Okay, so the first thing is, let's call this LFO1 and we're going to call this the motion base. Okay, so this is like driving all of our motion. Okay, and let's call our null1 or our null2. We're going to call this null1 motion. Okay. Uh-oh. We have an error. So what happened? Well, if you look here, what is being referenced, right, is looking for names. And we changed our name. So all we have to do here is we can either copy our parameter and paste it again, or we can just simply update the name. Excuse me, no, one motion. Okay, all right, we're all good. So how do we get, and also if you want a little more screen real estate, you can close this palette. Okay, if you ever need it, it's right here. It's the little anchor button, but we're gonna close that for now. So how do we get this signal into multiple signals? So I'm gonna move the first null over a little bit so we have some more space. And what we're gonna use here is a select chop. Okay, and so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna insert a operator. Okay, and we want the select chop. And so what this select chop allows us to do is select multiple things, but we can also use it to route our signal or split our signal into multiple signals, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the output. So you'll see it highlighted here of the LFO1 motion base, middle mouse click, okay? And we're going to hit select again, okay? So now essentially we have branched off our signal into 2 signals, okay? Now, they're moving at the same rate, so we want to impact one a little bit. So we're just going to add a math chop here, okay? And we're going to multiply this by 2. Okay, so now you can see that our motion in the X direction is twice as fast, okay? So we used our multiply chop. We're basically just multiplying whatever the signal coming out of select one by 2. Okay, so let's do some renaming here. What we want to do is we want to call this select one, and this is motion TX. Okay, so that's the X motion, and we're going to call this one select two motion TY. Okay. Now, as always, we want to null. Okay, so we're going to null here, and we're going to call this null to motion TY. Okay, and we're going to change this one to null one, or I'm sorry, we're going to keep that null one motion, but we're going to call this null one motion TX. And again, got to fix our reference. So we're just going to add that. Okay. So how do we now take this and start animating in the Y direction? Very simple. Okay. So two ways. We can just reference it. Okay. So really we could reference and select it, but before we do that, I want to do one more thing. So I want to show you. So because we're trying to keep our names correct, if you look in here, you can see that the channel from the LFO was initially referenced as RectTX. So we're going to actually we're going to change that back. We're just going to call this Rect1 motion. Okay. We're going to leave our error for 1 second. Okay. And we are going to now use our rename chop. Okay. And go to your select, and we're going to take our channel name. So this, because we have one channel, we don't have to change anything here. We're just going to say rename the rect TX. Okay. And then for select two, same thing, rect but TY. So now you can see that we're referencing, and if we really want to be specific, which we should be, we're going to call this rect1TX, and we're going to call this rect1TY, because we're trying to change the TX and TY of this rect1. Okay, so now how do we fix this? Again, we can retype it. Quick way is we're just going to activate our viewer, and we're going to drop it and drop our chop reference. And then we're going to do the same thing for the viewer of the null to motion TY, and drop that in to our TY of our transform. Okay, and now we have our rectangle animating in both the X and Y direction. You have a 2D animation going on. So what if we want to smooth this motion out a little bit? So what we can do here is we're going to insert an operator. And let's say we just want to smooth the motion in the Y direction. So we added a lag. Okay. And we can change these values here. We can set it maybe to 0.8. Okay. So that shows you. Now, if you're ever curious of um, what an operator does, okay, there's some help up here, so you can go ahead and click that. So we're just gonna leave the lag here. And also you can zoom in and kind of see how this is impacted, how the data is impacted, and like the difference in motion. So we added a lag, but let's say we want to add our lag to both axes. So what we want to do essentially is branch. So I'm going to disconnect these for 1 second. Disconnect, and I'm going to move this lag over here. I'm going to reconnect our motion. So you see everything's reconnected. Now let's take our lag and we're going to plug our LFO motion base into the lag first. Then we're going to plug our lag into our select. But instead, we're going to do disconnect. And then we're going to plug our lag into our select down here, but we're going to disconnect. Okay. I'm just going to move everything around a little bit. Some more space. Okay, so now what we've done, and as you can see, the frames are getting a little bit smoother. We could probably smooth that motion out a little bit more, but this is good for now. What we've done is we've taken our LFO, we've applied a lag to it first. Now we have that, we're selecting our lagged LFO and for the TX. We're applying a math. Okay, so our TX is multiplied twice in the X direction, but it's only going once, so it's twice as much in the X direction as it is in the Y direction. And then we fixed our name. Okay, so that's part 2. Got it moving. Stay tuned for part 3, and we're going to start exploring colors and color parameters inside of TouchDesigner.